It was the review that never was, or maybe it is, because it is now. So is it the review that should have been? Maybe. I don't know. We're reaching all the way back into the past. The very first video I recorded for this channel for my review of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice and my review of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, the DVD Blu-ray release of the Ultimate Edition, uncut, rated R, blah. Here on Midnight's premiere. Hope you guys enjoy. Alright guys, so like I said in my intro, if you guys go back a little ways back, a few months back, at the start of this channel, I did a first reaction recorded on my phone of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. I was wearing the same shirt. As a matter of fact, repping my team. Team Batman. So, I did a first reaction, and really my thoughts have not changed on the movie itself. It's a very sloppy movie. It's dark, it's gritty. I mean, the tone is there, but the script isn't there. The picture was edited really goofily. There was things that are there that shouldn't be. It did things that it shouldn't have done, and then it didn't do things that it should have. It was a mess. It was not a very good launch point from the DC standpoint. I mean, if you're going by Marvel and DC, it's really apples and oranges, to be honest. So, when I did my review, when I did my first reaction, nothing really changed, and I didn't think that I really had to do an actual review on the movie until we received news that Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers were going to be releasing an uncut, rated R version of Batman v Superman with 30 extra minutes of footage thrown into the movie, making the movie a little over 3 hours long. Okay? The 3-hour mark, that seems a bit much, but let me tell you guys, the theatrical version and the extended edition, night and day. I mean, it's day versus night, God versus man. Yes, it's completely different on this side versus this side, and I really believe they should have stuck with the extended edition because it was cut better, the scenes were better, and it was just all around better, in my opinion. It was a little long, but I looked at my watch during Batman v Superman. I didn't with this one. It just flowed better. The time just melted away. It was amazing. So, before we get started with our review of the theatrical cut, okay? Let's go back a few ways. Go back a few years to when Michael Keaton and Tim Burton was doing Batman. That was your launch point, back in the 80s, late 80s, of Batman. Michael Keaton played one of the most iconic Batman of all time. Jack Nicholson played one of the most iconic Jokers of all time. He was amazing. Tim Burton's direction and his visuals were spot on. And then we get to the issues with the WB. Well, the WB didn't like where he was going with it. Especially they didn't like the way he was going with the sequel, Batman Returns, which is one of the only sequels that Tim Burton has really ever done. It was too dark, it was too gritty, it was too depressing. Tim Burton, Michael Keaton backed out. That's where we get Batman Forever, okay, with your Val Kilmer as Batman, and he did a great job as Batman, but it was way too colorful, way too bright, and it just took a nosedive. Until Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale came out with Batman Begins some years later, and it kind of booted up the series a little bit more. It booted it up, and it gave to a rise of the DC world, the DCEU as it's being called. The Dark Knight came out. Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker stole the whole show, especially from Aaron Eckhart's Two-Face, and in some ways from Christian Bale's Batman. Stole the whole movie, and it was just fantastic. And then The Dark Knight Rises. The Dark Knight Rises was great, in my opinion, but to a lot of people, it was still very convoluted, very long. and it didn't hold very much water. So it took a little dive again. A few more years passed by. Zack Snyder announces that he is doing. Zack Snyder is also the director of The Watchmen, which was an insanely good movie, and it just keeps getting better every time you see it. It's a little long, it's a little graphic, but that's Zack Snyder. His visuals are amazing, and the story wasn't bad, especially to a guy who didn't know who the Watchmen were, who didn't ever read the comics or anything of that nature. So he came out with Man of Steel, and Henry Cavill killed it. He slayed it as Superman. We had our Superman movie. We had our Batman movie. We had everything that we ever needed for the DCEU. And Zack Snyder announced shortly after the mild success, because it was a mild success. Not a lot of people liked Man of Steel, but enough people liked it versus enough that didn't like it, that just kind of went with the flow. And to me, every time I watch Man of Steel, it just keeps getting better every time I see it. Okay? So, the announcements start pouring in after this. Batman v Superman is going to be the next one in our DCEU, directed by Zack Snyder. And the news started pouring in. Your Batman was going to be Ben Affleck. Batfleck. I didn't like that decision. No one liked that decision. It was starting to become... Then Gal Gadot was being cast as Wonder Woman. Yikes. We don't even know who she is. We don't know what movie she's been in. What kind of credentials does she have to be one of the very first super heroines on the silver screen? Okay? What kind of credentials does she have? And the news just kept getting worse and worse and worse. You know, we had a rumor of Doomsday coming in. They were going to go with the Death of Superman storyline for the Batman v Superman. We didn't know how the fight was going to go down between Batman v Superman. We saw the first images of the Batmobile. That gave us hope. We saw the first image of Batman. Ben Affleck as Batman. That gave us more hope because that costume was amazing. Okay? That's why I got this shirt, because it's amazing. A little less armored than I would have liked it, but it harkens right back to the comic books. It really does. It harkens straight back to the comic books. And then we saw Henry Cavill's Superman, and the only real change that we see is a little bit of the belt design. Instead of the circle, we have the square, which shows us a little bit, in my opinion, it shows a little bit more of an edgy character for the battle that he's about to go through. And then the first trailer dropped. Oh my God, it was amazing. The second trailer dropped. That was brilliant. Then the third trailer, and then the fourth trailer. And we heard news reports that this movie wasn't even halfway, we hadn't seen even 5% of the movie from the trailer, which we knew we were going to get a long movie. We didn't know we were going to get that long of a movie. And then the final day came out. It was packed theaters. Everyone had such high hopes for this launching point for the DCEU. And in many ways, this movie fell flat right on its face due to the actors and their lines. Gal Gadot killed it as Wonder Woman. Okay, she didn't have very many lines though. I wish she would have had some more lines. Ben Affleck killed it as Batman. He was jacked. He was the tank Batman that we always wanted. He killed it. And then Henry Cavill came back in his true Superman form. Amy Adams, Jeremy Irons as, Alfred, Amy Adams as your Lois Lane. Perfect casting. Their lines, excuse my French, they were shit. The lines were a little flat. Okay? So, 2.5 hours goes by. There were some real uplifting moments in the movie, but I think the biggest thing that really brought it down was Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. He is not a Lex Luthor. In my opinion, he will never be a Lex Luthor. You can shave him bald. Lex Luthor was always very quiet, very methodical, and he had these random outbursts of just manic anger. And that's, how Kevin Spacey portrayed him in Superman Returns, which was another DC movie that we got, and it didn't really hold any water. But his performance in that movie was amazing. Jesse Eisenberg was not. He is not a Lex Luthor. So, if you want my initial review, and if you guys haven't seen the movie yet, I'm going to put this, the big spoiler right here, spoiler review. The banner for the spoilers, excuse me, and it's if you haven't seen Batman v Superman, where have you been? Have you been living under a rock? Please tell me you don't live under a rock. They're dirty. They're terrible. Terrible places to live. They're cold. So, the end of the movie, Batman v Superman, he does die. Doomsday does kill him. Okay? We get this all-consuming funeral. There was like 6 endings to the whole thing. It was confusing. It was really a mess. It was. So if I'm gonna give it a review grade, I'm gonna say it was a D plus maybe, for some of the great talent we had in the film, and the talent that we had, most of it killing it for what they were portraying. But then we get on to the other side of the fence, to the extended rated R cut. And let me tell you, folks, this movie was amazing now. You have scenes where they should have been, things happening where they should have happened and not where they shouldn't be happening. 30 more minutes of footage, 3-hour movie. It would have been hellacious to sit through in the theaters, let me tell you, but that's why they put recliners in theaters now. That's why they put them in almost every theater, and big leather seats so that you're comfortable for the long ride home. This movie was amazing in its uncut form, in its rated R glory. There was more blood. Yes, there was a little bit more cursing. But other than that, the scenes they put in were amazing. They made the story flow a whole lot better. They made the lines that the characters had a whole lot more, engaging. And the funeral scene at the end, I actually teared up, because it was really, really intense. And I will give the extended version a B minus, actually, versus the D minus or the D plus that I gave the theatrical cut. If you're going to see this movie, if you're going to buy it on Blu-ray, buy the Ultimate Edition with the 30 extra scenes. But please be careful. I went halfway through the theatrical cut disc before I realized that that the extended version was the disc below it. Yeah, that was almost 5 hours of my life wasted right there. But I'm actually happy I did that, because I can now compare the theatrical and the extended cut right beside each other. Because I started the theatrical cut and it almost got to the end, and then I started the extended cut and I was like, oh, that's where that scene is. Oh, that's really cool. Oh, that makes a whole lot more sense now. I wish they had added that in there. Should they have kept all this stuff on the cutting room floor? Absolutely not. They should have released it out to the public. We should have gotten the extended cut instead of the theatrical cut. I think it would have made the critics happier, would have made the fans happier, and I really do believe this would have been the launch point for the DCEU, Justice League, and the rest of the DC cinematic universe coming out in the next coming years. So, just a brief recap, since there was a lot said. Theatrical cut, D plus, and your extended edition is a B minus. I would definitely recommend seeing the extended edition over the theatrical. And I guess that about wraps it up for this review and this really, really long rant. Sorry for the extended cut video that I just released right now. So if you liked what you saw in this video, click the like button right down below. If you guys have seen the theatrical or the extended cut Blu-ray of Batman v Superman, comment below. I want to hear from you. I want to see what your opinions were of either one of the versions, or both, if you guys want to do that. So, and I guess that about wraps it up for this review. Click the subscribe button if you want to keep up with all the latest news and videos from this channel. My name is Mr. Midnight, and this has been Midnight's Premiere. Thanks for watching, guys.